All right, we're going to give this a go. We'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show that we've had 3 executive sessions since our last meeting. We met on the 7th and 8th of December to do superintendent interviews with the final candidates. And we had an executive session before this meeting where we discussed contract issues and some personnel issues in the district, as well as legal. And let's just get this right off on the best foot possible. We'll just review our rules. For public comment on agenda items, 4-minute limit per person. We need you to state your name, your municipality, not your address, just your municipality. We are well aware of the Pennsview case. And which agenda items you're speaking about. Then go into what you need to say. The speaker must be a legal resident of the school district. If there are any sunshine objections during the meeting, they need to be made in an orderly fashion, and they will refer to Mr. Audi as to whether we need to take an action on that or not. And any decision on how to respond or if to respond is final for tonight. The public comment on non-agenda items, same thing, 4 minutes, state your name, municipality, which thing you want to talk about. And if you are a non-TASD resident and you'd like to address the board, please send an email to board@tasd.net and we can make an arrangement for that depending on the situation. Our policy states that all comments to the board have to be approved or registered in advance of the meeting. We've never required that, and we're not going to start requiring that for TASD residents, but in the event that there are groups or others that want to address the board, we want to have an opportunity to vet that before a meeting. One final piece of business. The TASD board does not censor public statements, even those we may find offensive or inappropriate. We request that all comments be respectful, even if passionate, and that we conduct ourselves appropriately for the venue and audience, which includes children. Each individual is responsible for their own words and actions, as well as any potential consequences of using defamatory or otherwise illegal speech in this setting. Repeated disruption of the board meeting may result in early adjournment of the meeting, warnings to disruptive citizens, up to and including any other legal remedy available to the district. So we just want to get that out there. We want to hear what everybody has to say. No one's going to be censored. We're just asking that everybody have the decorum that we need for the venue. You can make your objection. We're going to refer to Mr. Audi when an objection is made. He will decide if there's something the board needs to address or do, or whether it's just going to be noted.
I have to start off. It's very unfortunate. I have to start off. I didn't vote for him to represent me.
That is how we're doing this tonight. If there is a complaint about that, then you'd have to pursue a legal capacity for that.
So I have a legal objection, okay, to what you just said. Is the mic on?
Yeah.
Okay, so my legal objection is going to be, if you don't mind, my legal objection is on the community participation on 903. If somebody would read that, I'd like a reading of 903 about the speakers.
That's not an objection. You just state
My
your
objection is that you did not read the full thing just now, so you did not, so through omission, you didn't finish 903. So either Mr. Audi, if you don't mind reading, you can, or I can read it.
No, nobody's going to read the policy.
Okay, so
State
We're
your
not going to
objection.
read the policy, and I'm going to ask you to sit down so we can get started.
okay, so what we can't do.
The objection will be dealt
In order
with
for you
later.
to change the policy?
Sir,
the
if you
policy
don't
Policy
sit
hasn't been
down,
changed, George.
if
Okay,
you
the
don't
pol-
sit
Have
down
a seat.
now,
Your objection is noted.
we are going to ask you to leave if you
So
don't sit
903,
down at this
you
moment.
can't ask me to leave. I
We're
have a right
moving
to be-
forward.
George, this is disruptive.
Let's
This is
move
what we
on.
talked about. Have a seat. Now, please.
Through omission of 903, you did not finish the reading. There are people here who want to speak.
Are they legal residents of Tocanic School District?
Please read 903. You'll only read in one part of the paragraph.
This is-
You
that's
have
the
no
procedure.
business, excuse me.
Sorry.
I'm telling you now, we're going to cut the microphone immediately.
The board-
So we can start this meeting. You are stopping this
The
meeting from
board
taking
requires that,
place.
this is my legal objection. The board requires
Is there
that
anybody
public
here to
participants
shut down
be
that microphone,
residents
please?
of taxpayers of the district
Please shut
or
down the
anyone
microphone.
representing a group in the community.
Let's proceed.
Any representation
Okay.
All over the district did.
Other public comments on agenda items.
Guys, this is your policy. Shutting the mic off, you just restricted me.
That's fine. Press charges. Take note. We're going to continue with the meeting. We can have the mic back.
First, I'd like to say, is it on?
Yes.
Shira Knight. I'm from Tunkhannock Township.
Thank you, Shira.
First, I'd like to say that it's nice to be back here, so we appreciate being back in person. That's great. Thank you for that. And welcome back and welcome to the new people. My question is on the agenda item for the budget and for the district enrollments that you had included, specifically the out-of-district cyber students that we have. So it looks like we had 107 students originally when school started that were using out-of-school cyber. That has increased to now 137. If we look at the fact that we're spending $16,000 a student, per student that doesn't have an IEP, just a regular student, $16,000 per student, and then $33,000 for a IEP student. And we know that out of our student population, we have anywhere between 20 to 22% on an IEP. So my question is, I've got a couple questions. I just briefly ran through the numbers for the budget this time, and it looks like we've spent over close to $450,000 this month alone on writing checks to outside cyber schools. Would that be correct? Okay. So given those numbers, we could be looking at close to maybe 2.5 to 4 million, somewhere in there this year. So my biggest question is, what is our district doing? Because we know that these kids are out of our district now. We know that we are not receiving those funds. So what cutbacks have we made so that we can fill in that gap? Because at the end of the year, you're going to have a fiscal problem where you are short $2.5 to $4 million, and it's not fair on the taxpayers of Wyoming County to be hit with another tax cut. So I want to know what our school district is, what we're pulling back on, what we're reducing, what programs we're getting rid of, so that we can compensate for this loss of income.
I don't know what that number is compared to like previous years off the top of my head to know if it's comparable to our budget or not.
It's trending upward. I mean, you can look
Right.
at this, we're +6, +15, +9, every month we're trending upward. So we have to be proactive in this, you know. So from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, we haven't done anything. I'm just curious, like, have we done something? Have we not done something? What are your ideas?
I don't think you're on.
I want to check with the business office, and I want to do some historical check just before I answer that question, because I don't know that we're trending above where we budgeted. I understand your point, like that kids are leaving the district to go to cyber school. This is about maybe a little bit more than the number of kids we have in our own cyber school. So I just need to do a little bit of research on that before I can answer that question.
Well, and we also have to consider the fact that we have physically less students to teach in our district right now, so we should have resources freed up, staffing, whatever. We should have money to help cover that, because obviously if we're not educating those 137 students, we have to take those resources and apply that to paying that and cut something.
And we have been.
What have we cut?
We have not filled positions through attrition. This year, the only reason that we were able to bring on additional staff for kids who had academic loss last year was through the ESSERS fund. Right? The ESSERS money,
Yep.
that's what we're kind of using it for. That's what it's for. It's a one-time gift.
Yep, I'm watching that.
And so, but previous to that, like a lot of times, well, the majority of times, because I'll tell you, when I got here, there was like 230 teachers.
We also had more, to be fair, we had more schools.
Right, you had more schools, right? And that was one of the reasons to consider consolidation, was so that as teachers retired, that we didn't need to fill those positions, and we haven't. So that's just the teaching staff. It also worked in the custodial staff, in the food service staff, across the board. So there have been cuts.
Okay.
And actually, the fund balance has been stabilized. So but in terms of answering questions specific to these numbers, I need to do a little research on what was the number at this time of year last year.
Can we have that on the next board
Sure.
meeting? Can we have some clarification so we know where we stand and if additional cuts need to be made? Because we don't want to get to the next time it's time to raise taxes and say, oh, gosh, we need more money.
Yeah.
And then hit the taxpayers with another tax increase. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Especially during a time of COVID when families are struggling already. We
Right.
don't want to burden people
I agree.
anymore.
I agree. And that was one of the reasons we created Fusion,
Okay,
right? Was to try to stop that bleed.
great.
Okay?
Okay, if
Okay.
we could just do it next time,
I'll
that's
do a little
great.
research, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Brody, and I have children in 9th and 10th grade. I know that on the agenda tonight is contact tracing. Sorry, I'm getting a call from Tunkhannock Area School.
Yeah, so was I.
So I know that that's on the agenda. Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you to the new board members for serving our community. It's appreciated. And I know that you're talking contact tracing tonight. So I would like to request that the school administrators no longer perform the contact tracing. So I know that we're going to have a new superintendent, and I'd like to give him a chance to succeed and not be burdened with the tracing. And our administrators need to focus on education, and we need to trust that others can do that job. I would also like to request that we don't discriminate against unvaccinated kids. So vaccinated people can transmit COVID just as unvaccinated people can transmit COVID. And vaccines lessen the seriousness of COVID disease, but they don't protect against transmission. And that's as the vaccine labels state and the numbers have shown. So unvaccinated children have the same right to an education. So I would like the focus to be on protection from the spread of the disease and not on picking sides and proving points. So I would just like that to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Is there any other comment on agenda items for tonight?
So on your, I have one on the minutes. I always notice the minutes. I know it could be very hard to try and get what's the most important thing. What's the criteria for deciding what goes into minutes? Because, yeah.
Carolyn does the minutes, and I often see her at her desk watching the live stream, and she's like trying to transcribe them.
I got it.
The board actually approves them, though.
Okay, got it. So does she use the, like some type of criteria or just judgment? Does she have a criteria to go by, like important items, insignificant items, this is really significant? Is there something that guides her or just experience? It's okay. It's not a trick question. That was not a trick question. I'll get you
I
later.
think it would probably be like the actionable items are primarily what's recorded for posterity's sake,
Okay.
and then public comments are usually, you know,
I saw, they're
summarized.
pretty good. One of my biggest concerns is I haven't seen the death threat item, and that's a pretty significant one. It was it was in the minutes. Is it in this book right here? Okay, it's 70 pages. I haven't found it yet. So I'm glad that it's there. So I'd like to comment on that. So the good news is that despite the fact that there was a few board members who commented on that thread that no one knew existed, after thorough investigation with 3 agencies, one being across with the FBI, there's no credible evidence of threat or violence, death threat or violence to Mrs. McPherson or to anybody here. And the worst yet is what they did discover is there's tons of defamation and slander, unfortunately against me. Now, I'm okay with that kind of, but if you're allowed to allow that to happen to me, you're going to keep doing it to everybody behind me and other people. If you witness as a school board member defamation or slander or death threats or threats of violence, I can assure you there's an ethical code to do something about that. Because no school board member or superintendent should have that possible threat on them making decisions based on the fact that is this threat real or not. And then you have, whether you take a tacit approach to allow it to grow legs because it was discrediting me, because I'm not allowed on that post because I did a Memorial Day parade that no one wanted to do, so they kicked me off that page. I didn't witness it until months later. It was brought to my attention. So for months, board members allowed this to tacitly go on in order to discredit me, right? When you're discrediting me, you're discrediting other citizens too, okay? Because there are people who want to speak, but constantly get this attention that I get that they can't handle or don't want to. I know what death and violence looks like, and all I see on there is defamation and slander. So we'll have to take care of that civilly, I understand, because there's no source. So next time, as school board members, please speak up, alert your other board members, do the right thing. Thank you.
So I mean, I just have to comment, I really have no idea what you're talking about, George.
I'm sorry.
No, but I mean, really, like, I'm unaware of any death threat toward me, I'm unaware of any slander, like,
And I'm sorry.
well,
I'm sorry that you're unaware. You should be made aware because there was...
but I believe this was investigated and there was,
There was board follow-up. We spoke to different police officers, we checked, we had them checking lists.
I brought it to your attention.
After, because we weren't aware. So,
so when I say I'm not, I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, George, I'm not on Facebook, I don't,
I'm making you disgusted that you didn't know because the tread was widely publicized and there was commenting people that are here today that are commenting on the tread, so.
okay. I just want to be clear that I personally have no knowledge of the situation, of any of that, what George just said, so.
okay. Any other public comment on agenda items? Yep.
Hi, Sheila Donnelly, Tunkhannock Township. Thank you for turning the lights on. I can't see in the dark, so thank you very much. Regarding number 3 on the new business, discussion of path forward for a health and safety plan, I think that was mentioned before. So I like the words path forward. It's forward-looking, it's forward-thinking, it's forward positivity. Since there's really no specifics about exactly what is being discussed here on the health and safety plan, I'm going to capture that openness and put my own path forward here. It's been a bit challenging to have dialogue with board members during the meetings. We know it's hard during this meeting to be put on the spot with questions. So we recognize that there's probably a better way to go forward on this path to health and safety and more. And we're hoping to find a solution. Some of us will be submitting a few questions to you in advance of board meetings. Several community groups have put forth over 2,000 hours in an effort to that path forward, not to toot our horn at all, but just to let you know that we want to, our elected officials and our school officials to hear us and for us to hear them. We want our school district officials and employees to, oh, I just said that, I'm sorry. It's going to take some work. It's about all of us here, we the people, and especially our kids. They're growing up, and we will take our places, or they will take our places one day very soon. We have some work to do and to get some things straightened out for them on this path forward. I'm a grandma. Maybe there's people in here who are grandparents. I have 4 grandchildren. I have a 4-year-old grandson who's going to start school in the fall. Usually kindergarten is a very exciting day. I'm trepidatious about it. He's not starting in this district, it's somewhere else in Pennsylvania. But just with all the last 2 years, it's very concerning to me as a grandmother. And I think just from a personal perspective, I love this area. I love Pennsylvania. I grew up in California. I've lived in another country. I've seen what it looks like to not have freedoms. I'm concerned. So I'm sharing my wisdom as a grandmother. My grandparents were born in the 1800s. So I'm speaking from a perspective of watching this from over six decades of being on the earth and watching and listening to people of many decades before me and being concerned. So I'm politely saying we need to fix this. We need to communicate better. And the one thing I see today that's really better are the lights. Thank you so much. We know that board meetings are a tough situation, and to have questions thrown at you from the community, our community and parent groups from United, Parents for Freedom, and Citizens Advisory Gazette will be sending a few questions to the board in advance of school board meetings. By doing so, we hope to improve two-way communication It will help us all get better answers. We're actively seeking ways to open the door of communication wide and shine a bright light. We can change this. In the words of the agenda for tonight, we need a path forward, and we can continue to have an open forum at the school board meeting as well. So we'll be submitting questions by email in advance and would respectfully ask you to answer those questions the best you can before the next board meeting. This will truly give us a chance as a community to communicate with you better. And I just wanted to mention about this, I believe, is a policy with the health and safety plan. Identify and assess existing in-school community resources to provide for physical and mental health needs of students and staff. I'm especially interested in that, especially the mental health needs. We have a lot of things going on with our children that I don't think are being addressed with their mental health. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila. All right, anybody else?
Hi, I'm Jody King. I live in, I guess, Northmoreland Township is what it would be considered. I would like to know who are my representatives for that area. Okay. I'd just like to say a couple things about what we're going to talk about with contact tracing and all of that in our plan forward. I, too, am a grandmother. I've watched, I have 4 grandchildren ranging from 8 years old to 8 months old. And my 2-year-old granddaughter was out of school because her mom had a baby. So she just started back at school. And what we've seen over that time in the last 2 months is that because she has to wear a mask in her daycare, she just screams. She doesn't use words anymore. She just kind of screams. She doesn't express herself the way she should, the way she was, because she no longer feels that anybody hears her with a mask on. And I kind of thought that represents a lot of what our kids are going through right now. A lot of our kids in our community are suffering. A lot of our kids in our community don't know how to express what they're feeling and what they're going through. I know if we just look at news stories, there's many adults that don't know how to express what they're feeling or what they're going through, and sometimes they don't express it very well if they do express it. So I would just hope that moving forward that we look for a plan that our kids can thrive and really, really grow in this environment in our school and get a better education. In the end, that's really what I hope we and all of you want. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Anyone else? All right, well, we have,
If there's no one else,
no,
Wait.
you already spoke, George.
I have a sunshine law violation.
This is your third time.
I have a sunshine law violation then? I like to.
We'll note your violation. I'm not
I
allowing
didn't give
to
you my
speak
violation.
again.
I didn't give you my violation. I'm about to give you my
You
violation.
could tell us later. Right now, I'm asking you to sit down so we can move on with the meeting.
Participants must be recognized
Are
by
we
the
gonna
presiding
have-
officer and
are
must
we going
preface
to
the
have
comments by an
that
announcement of
microphone
their
turned
name.
off again, please?
Address and group
Turn the
affiliation.
microphone off.
Each statement
You
made-
are disrupting this proceeding, sir. You are disrupting this proceeding.
No participant may speak
George,
more than
after this
once
warning,
on the same topic.
I'm going to ask our legal counsel to pursue a legal avenue that would have you not allowed to be here because of being disruptive.
Who represents me?
Everybody.
John.
We're not answering there. Any more questions? Let's move on, please. Please sit down, sir.
Could you do a point of order to have 9?
That's a no.
George,
Have a seat, please.
Representative, you're not reading the
Have
full
a
order.
seat.
You're restricting my ability to speak.
Then contact a lawyer and take action against us. We're not doing this every meeting. Have a seat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. No other public comment? All right. Enrollments are there for everybody to review. Moving along, we have the minutes. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes from November 18th and December 2nd?
Motion to approve. Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Bennett? Mrs. Eckert?
Yep.
Mr. Franco?
Yep.
Mrs. Goble?
Yes.
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. All right, under business and finance. We don't need to separate anything out, so do we want to get a motion to approve items 1 through 6?
Motion to approve 1 through 6.
Is there a second? Thanks, Bill. Roll call? Any discussion? Sorry, discussion? All right, roll call?
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goble?
Yes.
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
No.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. All right, superintendent's report. This is the big one tonight.
I have a number of introductions to do, but first I want to start with item 1 under the superintendent's report, and I'm asking for a resolution that would approve the resignation with regret of Shane Powers as the COO. Shane, thank you for everything that you have done, and for being such a great part of this team, and I hope you and I stay in touch, but I wish you luck. And I know you'll be successful because I know all the skills and talents you have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to approve, regrettably. Second.
Any other discussion?
I have to say thank you, of course. So I knew you from P&G, and I was so thrilled to have you join the district. The departments that you've had a chance to be involved with, I've seen huge growth over the last couple of years with them. And so you leaving will be a shame, but the departments will continue to run because of the good people that are in place there and the systems that were put in place during your tenure. So you'll be missed. I know you'll be successful, and so I wish you the best in that new role.
I agree with that.
You've been a great asset to the district, and we really appreciate your work.
John, we don't actually have a, John Audi, sorry. We don't actually have a clause where we can deny it, right? I mean,
I'm thinking about that.
okay, all right. No, thanks, Shane. It was, it's always good when you have people in charge, which we have a lot of people in the district, that you can feel comfortable because you know that they can handle it. Like whatever it is, whatever comes up, if it's, hey, we're going to sell 2 buildings and we've never done this before, how do we do that? Shane's coming into the next meeting with, well, we follow this 18-point procedure and we do this, and this, and then she made it look easy, and I'm sure those types of things were anything but. So thank you. All right, if there's no other comments, roll call.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goble?
Yes.
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Unfortunately, yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Unfortunately, yes. Mrs. Eckert? Yes. Mr. Farr?
With regrets, yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes, and I wish her the very best going forward. Because we're still going to see her, because she's still in our community,
Right.
and she's going to be able to go to a basketball game now, and no one's going to ask her about school stuff, and I don't remember what that's like, so I think that would be awesome. Yeah. All right.
Okay, moving forward, I'm going to do these separately because some of these folks are here tonight, and I just want everybody to see who they are. The next resolution I'm asking for is the approval of the appointment of Paul Doherty as the superintendent at a salary of $137,000 annually, and the date of his start will be determined pending a number of things, including his clearances.
Yeah. Paul regrettably couldn't be here tonight. He was very excited and he was going to be here with his family, but as such things happen lately, a COVID quarantine has struck their household and he was not able to be here. But he is watching tonight, and he is so enthusiastic to be here with Tunkhannock. I know some people, he's coming from the Scranton School District, where he's one of the good guys fixing all the stuff that had been let go for so long. So we are stealing him away from there and very excited to do so. So he is happy to be here. We're hoping that he'll be here in February. So, but he'll be working with us behind the scenes before then, because he won't get paid for it, but he's very excited to start working on stuff with the district.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Goble?
Yes.
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mrs.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Okay, the next appointment, or the next resolution I'm asking for, is approving the appointment of Charles Suppan Jr. as the Director of Special Education at a salary of $105,000 prorated. He'll be under the Act 93 contract. He's a 12-month employee. And Charles is here tonight, so if you just want to stand up and say hello.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion?
Charles is a force to be reckoned with, so the football team is waiting for you, buddy.
We are stealing him from the Wyalusing School District, where every person I spoke to up there, especially some friends in the special ed department, said, I can't believe we're going to lose him, but I'd hire him too. So they're going to miss you, and their loss is our gain. So thanks, Charles.
He brings 5 years of experience in that position to us, so.
All right, we had a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Okay, so we're still in the Department of Special Education, and the next resolution I'm asking for is the approval of the appointment of Deborah Sherman as the Assistant Director of Special Education at a salary of $80,000 prorated. She'll be in the Act 93 contract. It's a 220-day contract, and her start date is yet to be determined. And Deb is here too. There she is. This position is what Mary Beth Howell held before she went to Elk Lake.
This is a very difficult position to fill, so we're so glad to have you.
Yes. And Deb is a supervisor of special ed in the Hanover district right now. So she also has experience.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? Welcome, Deb. Glad to have you. Can we get a roll call?
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Okay, so the next position that I am asking for a resolution to approve the appointment of Sean Castellani as the primary center principal at a salary of $94,000 prorated. That was my mistake, that's a typo, it said 93, it should be 94. He'll be in the Act 93 contract as a 12-month position, and his start date will be determined, pending his availability. And Sean is also here today, and I'm guessing that that is your beautiful family that's with you. Okay. Sean comes to us from the Montrose School District, where he is an elementary principal at Chocona Elementary, which is a K-5 building. So he has administrative experience at the primary and the high school level, but we're really pleased to have him with us.
Welcome.
Motion to approve the corrected resolution.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Welcome to all of our new employees.
Yes.
We're happy to have you on the Tunkhannock Tiger team. Hope to fill those closets with orange and black.
Yes. They're going to work on it. All right, so somebody that has a lot of orange and black is Paul Grabowski, and we're recommending that Paul be named temporarily as the interim principal at the intermediate center. And this, we had anticipated that Michelle Snyder would return the second semester, and she has extended her leave with board approval, her maternity leave, through the end of the school year. She will return in June. So Paul's salary would be $80,000. It's prorated during that period, and it would stay in a 180-day contract. So I'm asking for your approval of that resolution.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion?
Paul's been with us a long time. I think he knows the ins and outs, so I'm looking forward to have Paul step into that leadership position.
He's excited too.
Yeah.
All right. Roll call?
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mrs. Eckert? Yes. Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Vogel?
Yes.
Dr. Cavola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Then I'm going to ask for I'm going to ask for a resolution to approve items 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14, 15, and 16. So I'm pulling out item 12.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call?
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Vogel?
Yes.
Dr. Cavola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett? Yes. Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Okay, and so resolution to approve the change in start date of Sue Williams' sabbatical leave for the second semester. She has put in a request. Typically sabbaticals are by semester. She is requesting of you that you allow her to start her sabbatical at the first of the year upon our return.
Do we have any motions? I would say that this means that it fails for lack of motion, right?
Yes.
Okay. Item fails.
So the only other thing that I wanted to provide the board with an update on a couple of things. One is that as you guys are sitting there, you received an all-call from me. I did not learn about this until late this afternoon, and I've been in touch with some of the other local superintendents. TASD knows of no threats, no local, there's been nothing today. We'll continue to monitor this situation. This is a national phenomenon, and we'll continue to monitor with the local police overnight and with our Safe to Say Something team. And I assure you, if there are any developments or anything, that we will do the safe thing and until we can investigate thoroughly. But as of this moment, and as of my phone call, we know of nothing that is specific or even vaguely specific to Pennsylvania or to Wyoming area or Wyoming County. So I just wanted to say that because I know you guys got it on your phone as I was sitting here. The other thing is I wanted to provide the board as an update. Now this is as of Thursday, so these are numbers for this week as far as close contacts and the number of kids that we have in quarantine. You had asked me to have that information for you. So at the primary center, we have 6 positive cases. We have 21 close contacts. We have 18 students in quarantine. So that's a total of 24 kids that are out of school. At the IC, we have 9 cases. We have 37 who have had 37 close contacts. We have 33 in quarantine. That's a total of 42. At the high school, we have 4 positive cases. We have 23 close contacts. 12 of those students are in quarantine. So that gives a grand total of the number of kids that we have out right now at 82, which is pretty consistent with last week, so that's good news. I mean, comparatively, we're not seeing the numbers go up. So I just, at this point, we'll see how next week and the weekend goes. But that's just a point of information for you. 12, I'm sorry, 12. So even though there were 23 close contacts, only 12 had to quarantine. If there are any questions from the board, that concludes my report.
No, I think that's good. Those numbers are are lower than probably most of us assumed they would be, and we can hope that they stay that way, at least through the holiday, to keep school in session. I had a friend text me before this meeting started asking, should they send their kids Christmas gifts with them tomorrow for their teachers, in case we're not in school next week. Who knows? We honestly, we couldn't tell you, because we don't know how many cases will come in over the weekend or how things would change, but we're trending at a level that is promising for today. Manageable. All right. I don't think there were any committees that met. Okay. Unfinished business. I don't believe we have to vote on this, but the board committee assignments were given out, and those are listed in the committee report section of the agenda. So if there are community members who are looking for who is the chair of what committee to bring a committee issue forward, that is there for your consumption. Under new business, we have the Visa account, the summary of the Kelly Services substitute teacher fill rate, and then item number 3, discussion of a path forward for TASD's health and safety plan. We all know the mask mandate was lifted. I think the first subject we'll touch on is, does anybody see a need on the board to address masking?
What do you mean?
Okay. Whether we should make it mandatory. And my understanding is that the board didn't have the interest in doing that, but I just wanted to cover that first before we move on.
Well, I know it's a hot topic, but the reality is, I think we have to also look at what the goal is. Health and safety is number one, but we want to do everything we can to keep these kids in school. And my feeling is that we want to keep the lowest disruption possible. Because if we remember a year ago, there were people at the microphone begging to have their kids come to school. And they would do anything to have it. And I know that was different data points. But I think all school districts, including Tunkhannock, of course, we're in a tough spot because the linchpin to the Department of Health coming in and closing a building down, depending on the case counts, is vaccines and masking. So those are the two linchpins. But we can't forget the kids and keeping them in the school buildings. It's a complex issue. It's not an easy issue. It's an emotional topic for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But I want to stress, at least my concern is, what do we have to do in the best interest of the kids' education? Virtual doesn't work. We all heard that loud and clear last year. In-person works best. So my feeling is, how we move forward, there's a timing issue. I know we're going into the holidays. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about this when we see the numbers. Right now, we're very lucky. Cases are low. But the reality is, when the cases go up, and they're going to go up, what is this board and what are we willing to do to, number one, keep the kids in the best education possible? Because I remember last year, and I don't want to forget, there were a lot of emotional people coming to that microphone about their kids not getting a great education. We didn't have control over it then. We have a little bit more control over this now. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, the part that I was going to say is, so I'm not in favor of it right now. What I've heard from most people is number one is keep kids in school. So to echo what Bill said, that has been what's been told to me. So, if our choices were go virtual or be in school with masks, I would choose be in school with masks, because I think that's what I hear from people. Right now, we don't have to worry about that, but if we end up, we just had an example of this happen. Lake Lehman just got shut down, so they're down virtual until January 3rd, so I think so.
Something like that, but I think they had 50
Right,
cases.
they had 50 cases, so I'm using it as an example of, I think I'm fine staying the course we are now, but we need to, as a board, be ready to meet in an emergency fashion to discuss this if we don't have a meeting scheduled the next day or the next 2 days, because I just don't want to see school get shut down and us go virtual for 10 days if we have an option to wear masks and basically keep on moving. So I'm not in favor of that right now. Those numbers are surprisingly low. Hopefully they stay there. But I think it's more important that kids are in school. Now we have to couple that toward contact tracing, and what do we do with that whole thing?
That's next
But
on our
that'll be next.
discussion.
But the Department of Health was the one that made the decision, from my understanding, for Lake Lehman. It wasn't a local decision. So, that's not something that we can say, well, we're just going to keep pressing on and hope it works out. If the Department of Health comes in and mandates that we shut down, that's what we would end up doing. So I want to get in front of that versus we let it get out of control and we're shut down for 2 weeks, which I think is the same thing Bill's saying.
Yeah.
I have a question. Heather, do you know what the numbers are per school? For instance, if the PC has to be shut down, but the other two can remain open, is there a certain number attached to them?
It does go by building.
It does.
By
and-
building,
and
but what's the number
the-
attached to that?
So I don't know. Those thresholds went away, and
Okay.
they are no longer being used by Department of Health. So they're monitoring our numbers by building.
And they will tell us when to
Yes.
close?
Yes,
And what building to close?
yes.
Okay.
Or if it's the whole district, because we have such a complex web of contact tracing.
Okay, thank you.
I would echo John and Bill's, of all his comments, that it's better to be in school with mask on than to be virtual. I recall hearing parents last year as well. We did the hybrid schedule, so they were in school 2 days a week, and kids struggled. That's a problem.
Well, they're going to struggle more if they're in and out. So that's the other thing, is it's one thing to plan for hybrid, and that didn't go well for a lot of students, but it'll go worse if we're out in an unplanned fashion.
Exactly.
So we just need to be ready to meet as a board to talk through those options if that happens, I think.
So what does this mean for the community? In my opinion, that means we're not putting masks on the kids right now. If things were to go crazy and there was an advantageous reason to do so, we could meet and we'd have to vote on that. Because the way our health and safety plan is written is that masks cannot be required without a school board vote or a state mandate. So the biggest help starts at home before the kids ever get on the bus in the morning. We need kids who are sick to stay home. We need kids that are maybe sick. You could buy a kit at CVS for $23 that has 2 15-minute COVID tests in it to check your family or whoever if you're concerned or you think it might be a possibility. And honestly, nobody knows what that result is except for you and your house to make the right decision. So I would say that's going to be the biggest help, is to keep sick kids home. Our current health and safety plan says that for contact tracing, which that's the next piece, right? So when a sick kid comes to school, now we're contact tracing that kid, and it's putting a whole bunch of other kids out of school. And even if it doesn't close a school building, it's putting that kid behind, and then Dr. Perwoll, I'm going to use your example that I've heard you give before. You have an AP class, and they're in there with Mr. Kaiser, and half of his class is contact traced. Those kids come back, he's going to have to back his lessons up. So it's not just those kids that are going to be behind a little bit. He's going to have to catch those other kids up and the other kids in the class. It has a ripple effect on everybody. So nobody wants to go that route. I do want to begin a discussion, which I know we're not changing this overnight. I want to begin a discussion on the contact tracing. So Mr. Audie's been looking into what some of the legal requirements are for this. Some of the stuff that I had found stated that, schools must report cases to the Department of Health for contact tracing and quarantine and isolation orders if necessary. And also that we have an obligation that if a kid is sick or quarantined, we have to keep them out of school. And, that goes without saying. I would like to see us work out some kind of a plan that moves closer towards keeping kids who are not sick in school. So what that looks like is up to us and up to what's required and up to Heather and up to, Joe DeLuca and up to Paul Doherty. We have to work together as a team on this. But our district does not have a requirement to contact trace. We are required to notify the state for contact tracing. The state can't do an effective job of that. But we have to find a middle ground between what the guideline states, which we all know there's a lot of it. Even Heather and I have talked about, there's a lot of it that doesn't make any sense, that a kid who had symptoms last Tuesday but didn't get tested till this Monday, we're now contact tracing back 10 days to follow a guideline. We need to be able to dial this in a little bit more so that the mitigation efforts we're making as part of our plan are effective at the intended goal, not just checking a box that says we did the thing that was on the list. So what a timeline for a change or research would look like in my idea that I tossed around, we have these conversations tonight and ongoing. The first meeting, we have to vote to change it because our current plan says that we are going to do the contact tracing. And we have something in place that aligns with both the time taken to research this properly, come up with a plan that we vote on, also gives time for the little kids, the kids under 12 that were just starting to be allowed to be vaccinated, for the families that wanted them in November. So they get a shot, they have to wait the 4 weeks or whatever, get another shot, wait a couple weeks till that's considered effective. For the families that want it, I would like to have something that we could vote on to change and be an effective mitigation strategy by January 17th. Because I feel like that's 2 weeks after we get back from the Christmas holiday. So, I mean, there is always that concern that people are gathering over Christmas and stuff. So, thoughts from the board?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, where we started here, we got to do our best to keep sick kids out of school. And that's difficult because everybody's got a cough or a sneeze and you don't know if it's COVID, so you're shooting blind on all this stuff. So I think we need to work together to figure out what are we doing now? Are there pieces of that can be simplified, changed, excluded because it doesn't make sense? And then we try to put that plan in place. And I think the timing of mid-January is helpful because hopefully this current surge we're seeing, I go back to what we did in the summertime. We operated schools here with no masks and we had 0 cases. And that's because there was an average of 3 to 4 cases on a rolling 7-day time period when we were operating summer school. Right now it's 150, and that's probably an order of 2 to 3 underreported based on my guess of who's reporting COVID and who's not. So there's a lot of it going on versus what we did before. So if those numbers can hopefully peak over the next few weeks and start to come back down again, again with the objective of keeping kids in school, because if we eliminate, we've already eliminated mandatory masking, if then we eliminate contact tracing and we have kids coughing and sneezing in school, then we're going to pick up a ton of cases and we're going to go out virtual. So my objective is to do whatever's needed to keep kids in school, and if we can come up with a simpler way to do that, I'm completely in favor of it.
And I will so admin has been working on that. They have plans. We're going to be bringing in some more workers to help on the weekends as needed. So this isn't just a board issue. The administrative team has been working on this behind the scenes as well. Because we don't want to be completely careless, right? That's not the goal of anybody on this board, but we can look at the pieces of this and decide what's effective and what's not. And let's keep as many healthy kids in school as physically possible. And let's do everything we can to keep the sick kids out of school so that we can cut back on the spread. Because last year, for as much as we might have hated a bunch of the mitigation pieces, we didn't have like concrete cases of COVID being transferred between kids in school, right? Is that a fair statement, Heather? Like we really didn't, that we knew of. Well,
they were 6 feet apart.
Right, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like they were 6 feet apart, they were masked.
There were cases. I don't want to say there were no cases.
Not like what we've seen this year, though. Right.
So what we saw a lot of was that kids were getting it outside of school, not necessarily in school.
Right. And now we have had like cases that pretty much point to the fact that it was transmitted in school between kids, like whether it be on the bus or whatever the case may be. So it is a risk factor is my point. This isn't a fake thing. Sure.
If I could just respond to that.
Sure.
The lists that we're using right now to track the kids that are COVID positive, and then we have a list of the kids underneath them that are close contacts. And then if one of those close contacts tests positive, then we note it, right? That this child was a close contact of this student. So we do have some of that data. But in the final analysis, I can't prove that kid got it from another kid, right? I can't prove that they didn't get it at a birthday party over the weekend. I can't prove it. But you can't prove that he didn't. And so, like, that's the quandary, Ashley. You know, here's the place where they all gather. And so, you know, which makes, to me, if the only place they're wearing masks in school, it makes the mask more important because they're not wearing them anywhere else. So when kids come here, right, and they're mixing it up with kids that they don't normally hang out with, then, you know, we've got masks on kids. And so that's why I really strongly believe in the masking order. But, you know, it's very difficult for us to say with confidence, a child got it from this kid. And that's always going to be the way.
I didn't mean to imply that we would have to say that they got it from the kid. But if we looked at, let the students return attending. So say on Sunday or whatever that number of 70 close contacts came up. We could go 10 days later and say out of those 70 close contacts, 20 of them tested positive.
Yeah, I can do that.
Are we able to? I think that.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel frustrated. I
Right. Yes, I can do, from the way, sure, I can do that.
Great.
Russ, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Do we have an idea about how many of our kids have been COVID positive or probables, that we would have an idea of where we are with the idea of herd immunity?
I don't have that figure. We could drill down and get it. I do not have it, though. I don't have it with me tonight. I only have this week's figures with me tonight.
Ross, you bring up a good point, if I can. We hear about the antibody tests, but the testing is not good. But herd immunity, we heard 8 months ago it should be playing a role in this, but it's not. It's not. DOH doesn't do anything with herd immunity. All they do is masks and vaccines. That's the way they set their rules for closing schools. But I agree with you. If a person had true COVID and they have positive antibodies, that should be enough, at least, you know, for me. But they don't. The people who are making the rules, they're not tracking those things, which doesn't make any sense to me, but it's a great point.
So, Russ, the one thing I would say to you is I can get that number. Like, I can get you an approximate number. It's never going to be accurate because I know there's been kids and there's been probably adults that have been out and they never told us, right? So, like, they never made our list. So, I want you to know I can get it, I can provide those numbers to the extent that our numbers are accurate, okay?
I have a question also. You guys have the mask deemed illegal by the Supreme Court. So that makes it illegal today. It was issued to the day it was illegal. It was illegal the whole time. Nothing was different. It took a group of people to get organized, to decide to get representation, to solicit some money, to put a fight against it, to finally say yes. Non-law driving entities forced the mandate, scared school districts into wearing a mask. We all had one of our school board members actually said, well, let's just wear the mask until the courts decide. We could have said, let's not wear the mask until the courts decide. The contact tracing is the same way. It gets next, right? So it's illegal the way we're doing it. The absurdity keeps us all talking.
With all due respect, get to the question, George.
So this is my question. The question is this, if you don't mind, the question is this. The absurdity of the contact tracing, literally from source, sometimes it's upside down. We can't even understand it. It's absurd. As a board, your construct says when things become absurd, you follow law, policy, constitution. We already know contact tracing is illegal the way it's being ruled out. However, we're all being scared of executive.
The question is,
Are you, as a board, going to follow the policy of your construct? And when things become absurd, unreasonable, and you cannot implement something from a non-law-abiding entity, that you will then follow the law, follow the policy and the Constitution for us? Because we just dealt with the whole massive if you didn't follow the contract. It is your construction, it is your policy. New board members can read it, they can learn it, because it's in there. So will you guys honor your construction of your code, of your policy, that you're supposed to go ahead and use the law, the Constitution, to manage and help us through this absurdity? Because that's exactly what this is.
that's this discussion, right? So yeah, that's this discussion.
Well, no, it's not like everybody's trying to figure out more absurd. Well, if you do this, do that. No, it's absurd. It's unreasonable. You can't implement it. Your construction says those three words. And I can tell you that we go back and search absurd. We all say it's absurd. We know from leadership down to here. So when things are that absurd, your construction says follow the law. We already know it's being implemented. It's illegal.
If I may, I think we understand your point. We get your point.
We have appointed him, so stop with the banter. We're trying to have this open dialogue. Please respect it. Go ahead, Shire. We said we have been all along, and that's what we're having the discussion.
We can't hear you.
Shire, can you,
Louder.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Come to the mic.
I was just going to say that Heather.
Chuck, can you turn that on?
Hello? It's on. Heather brought up a good point. She said that last year we were social distancing, so I'm just throwing something out there. Even though the mask mandate is gone, maybe an option that the board may want to consider is social distancing the children. We saw last year that we have enough space for that in all of our buildings, so maybe that would be a way to, the goal, like you said, is to keep kids in school, so maybe that would be something that should be reviewed. You know, maybe making the classrooms socially distanced without masks, but that helps, you know, cut down the spread, cut down all the nonsense, and cut down the virtual school.
I think we're doing that to the best of our ability for the most part, but I mean, we had to make accommodations to get that, especially in this building.
But we're not doing that right now, right? Because I'm hearing that kids are not socially distanced.
They're not.
Right, so could we go back to a socially distanced policy? That's what I mean, even without masks. If you stand 6 feet away from me without a mask, my chance of getting COVID is pretty slim, right? That's why we stood 6 feet apart. So even without a mask, if we could keep these kids 6 feet apart, that really reduces the transmission in theory, right? So if we're trying to keep kids in school and keep them maskless, that might be an option. Just a thought that you guys might want to consider.
And don't forget, last year we also used Mahopany Elementary. We had some of our elementary kids up in Mahopany Elementary in the 1 week.
And we did the hybrid schedule to reduce the number of kids in the
We
building.
can get creative. I mean, I think we have enough buildings and our student population has declined, so I think that with some creativity, you could find enough spaces for the kids.
So, Shara, I think it could, I mean, physically it could be done,
Yep.
okay? And I think that the thing that we really want to, the high school schedule and the fact that some of those courses are on blocks, that would present some real issues as far as kids getting credits. At the primary, here's my concern. Now we have 20 kids in a classroom, right? They've been with this teacher for 4 or 5 months, and now we're going to give them a new teacher because we got to split that class in half.
I would argue that that's probably a better scenario than not having school at all.
Okay, I'm just
And
saying to you,
virtual.
there are considerations that
We all have to be
weigh.
flexible, right? Like, I
I
mean,
agree.
that's something, like our kids, if we said to our kids today, hey, if you had to go to Mrs. Smith's class instead of Mrs. Jones's class, but you could be in school with your friends and you could still have a teacher to ask questions, because we have found that that's really, really important to kids, mentally,
I agree.
learning-wise. Like, I think they'd take the teacher switch. I think if we got creative, the kids would do it. You know what I mean?
I think that the kids would be better about it than the parents, yes. Yes.
Do a survey. Do a survey. How about we do a survey? Because that would be a good thing to find out. Because I think that you'd be surprised to find out that if it means keeping our kids in school with a consistent schedule, like that's important to kids. Kids need routine. That any pediatrician will tell you that.
Right.
Socially, mentally, physically, like they need to be going to school. Sitting at home
So I'll
did
tell
not
you
work.
what we can do is, as a team, because this team is second to none in terms of what we've been able to pull off in the past, we'll sit down and for the next board meeting, we can look at what would the implications of that be. Okay?
Right.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
I think we want to move forward on this, so the idea would be let's collect more information and data and come up with a plan for how we're going to address contact tracing, and we can hit this. We'll have, I saw some other school boards' agenda that they actually had motions for multiple things under one issue that covered multiple options as a group, and the board evaluated all of them and decided to vote on the one that fit for them. So we'll come up with some options and look at this and to vote on in January with the idea that we could, put something in place for the 17th. Is that, Jody, quick though, sorry.
Just would like to suggest that maybe we look at, we've contact traced and we've quarantined kids for contacts. I'd love to know the data on how many kids actually went positive.
Yeah, that was the question she had asked, if we had an idea of like, okay, we had 70 kids quarantined, now this week, 10 of those 70 are actually COVID positive. Yeah.
But I'd like to know, like, if our contact tracing is really fruitful in that sense of going out as far as we go and where we go.
Heather, I do want to go back to, so what Shira brought up, I think we should look at low and no cost options. And the reason why I say that is, there's a no cost option here that none of us are in favor of, which is you wear a mask and then we won't shut school down. Okay, I'm not in favor of that, I already voiced it, but I want to be clear about that I don't think that I personally would want administration not looking at reopening up Mahoupany. I don't want to pull primary. So last year this was enabled because we had special ed teachers teaching primary classrooms. We had
everybody, John. We had reading specialists.
So the reason why I want to be clear that you have a few working days left in this district, and that's a momentous request to put together a plan to go back to what we were doing before. I'm not going to vote for that. And so if we're not going to vote for it, we shouldn't be wasting your time looking at it right now. So you could do creative options, which again, nobody's going to like. You could have masked kids on the right and unmasked kids on the left, and that solves the problem for contact tracing. Okay, so I'm not saying that I'm in favor of that. I'm just saying there's things half of our kids are wearing masks in school right now anyway. And so like that you could do things like that are low or no cost. I'm not suggesting that's a solution. But what I don't want to do is we're spending $500,000 to come up with a solution that's going to be here for a couple months and it's going to go away. I just think, I heard you say you're going to work on it, but we as a board need to direct you on what you're working on, and I would want low and no cost options and not significant spending. So unless people disagree, that's where, we got to be clear on what she's working on.
Then the solution last year was a hybrid schedule. I don't think anyone likes that.
No, and I think we have to be clear about there's two different matters and issues that we're talking about. There's actual cases of kids being sick, and those numbers are what those numbers are. And we can avoid that by having less sick kids come in. Then there's the idea of the kids that we're putting in quarantine through the contact tracing process and all of that. And, that issue might be something that we can look at what would be more effective and what makes actual sense to us as we look at it to be a real mitigation. Maybe there's ideas that aren't even out there that aren't part of that process that we could consider. So we do need to have conversations with different stakeholders with this, and we need to have an idea going forward because what we have is not sustainable. And I don't think there's anyone up here who doesn't believe that at some point contact tracing will have to go away organically. I think we all expected that would have happened by now. If you asked us a year ago if we would be contact tracing in December of 2021, that hasn't been the case. And maybe there'll be some other wonderful thing that comes up that the state decides to address it themselves before that, and it's something that we all think makes sense. So,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, somebody's the Grinch over there. Thanks. So yeah, that's where that is for that discussion. So for now, admin is working on processes that will streamline the contact tracing program and take some of the relief off the shoulders of the people who have been there on weekends until 9 o'clock at night and those types of things. As we move through this through like January, there might be instances of a classroom has to be closed because we don't get the notification that there was a positive case in the classroom to conduct all the contact tracing until, 10 o'clock at night the night before, and these things happen all the time. So let's all just work together with that, and I kind of want to move on to the next subject. We're moving on. Sorry, we're not having any more discussion on this. No more comments, because this is the issue. Like, I want to be able to have these open dialogues that we've had in the past, but it gets abused by some people. We're done. We're done. There is not a criteria. There's. This is not the discussion piece. Bring that up at the end of your 4 minutes. We're done with this subject. We're moving along to the next.
Holly, wait. The lady in the back has had her hand up for a very long time.
Let's just bring it into the 4 minutes at the end. If somebody had a comment they wanted to make on this, we'll tack on an extra 2 minutes. I don't care. I just want to move on in the agenda.
Okay, because she's been waiting for a while.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't see that. Okay. Number 4. Recommend that a resolution be adopted opposing a silica sand transfer plant in Tunkhannock Township. The background on this is that there had been a plan like 6 years ago or 7 years ago that got shot down through all kinds of really dedicated people who are opposing it. And all of a sudden you'll see that there's all this construction over by Dunkin' Donuts across the street where they are obviously fervently building something. So my understanding in talking with Randy White and talked to Ernie King today is that what happened was this new company came in. They actually put a sign up today. I forget what it was called. It was like Tunkhannock Trans Service or Transport something. They got all of their permitting done through the federal government and the railroad. So no one in the county or the township or any other local stakeholder had any idea it was even happening. There's nothing in the floodplain, there's no flood plan for it, there's all kinds of things. But the issue is that we've talked about in the past was the risk of the silicosis, the fact that there are probably other better places for it, and what I'm looking for tonight is direction from the board, because we don't actually have a resolution here tonight. Do we want to have a resolution for our next meeting written to have a vote to take a stance against having this system, this sand transfer plant in this location with the proximity to our school buildings, our children, and I believe we still have a baseball field down there.
There's a couple baseball fields down there.
But one of them is ours, right?
The girls do use one once in a while.
Well, the junior high baseball field is nearby there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have the Little League fields, and it's pretty close to the primary center. I have great concern of that plan coming to Tunkhannock.
So
That's my own opinion. I have concern.
Do we want to have something on the agenda next time?
So if we're opposed to it, doesn't hurt. We have no legal.
Correct.
Right.
It's just, hey, we're opposed to this.
Right.
So I'm in favor of doing that, but I don't think it's going to help, but I'm in favor of doing it.
It doesn't cost the district money, you can do it tonight. So this week, you can put it on the agenda as an item, as long as you can actually vote on it tonight.
Yeah, nothing changed in the last 24 hours to allow us to amend the agenda in such a way. So, board members, are we good? Do we want something on the next agenda? We don't have to approve it. We could have it.
I do, yes.
Yes.
Is anybody opposed to having
Please.
something on the agenda? Okay. We don't have a resolution tonight, written.
Yeah, we need that written first.
All right. Number 5, recommend that a resolution be adopted approving bus and van contracts as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Goble?
Yes.
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burt?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Abstain.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Number 6, recommend that a resolution be adopted approving the application for payment number 2 for $18,800 to Manglavidi HVAC Incorporated for a high school water heater.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion?
Just for clarification, while the nomenclature indicates second payment, there really is only one payment on this project, so this will be the only one that you'll see. There was just a notation that they made when they submitted that payment application. I just want to make sure that people do, because there've been a lot of questions when we've done projects and there've been multiple payments, like how many to anticipate, so I just want to share that from you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Recommend that a resolution be adopted approving the application for payment number 5B for $153,475.01 to Dunmore Roofing for the high school roof.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
All
Yes.
Inspected and
Is
everything's
John
all
here?
taken care of. I know they came up the last
Is John
time.
here?
Yep, John's here, so. I
Have
think
you
there may have
inspected
been
it?
a little
It's
bit
all-
of confusion, so John Chapolsky is the director of building and grounds, and there had been some question about who was managing the roofing and working directly with Dunmore Roofing. That is John Chapolsky. John is here. Payment 5B is the last payment on the high school roof project. That project had an initial walkthrough that John conducted with Dunmore Roofing, where they identified some punch list items that needed to be completed before that final payment. They then did a final walkthrough where John reviewed those items with them to ensure completion, and he has validated that the work was completed to our expectations before submitting this for final payment. John, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, so Versatile also has their own inspection that they provide so that we get the warranty, and that is completed. I have all the warranty information submitted this week to me.
That's the manufacturer, right, of the materials?
What's that?
That's the manufacturer of the materials that were used, so they
So
came.
they verified the roof installation. The first 2 years, Dunmore Roofing carries the warranty, and then Versatile picks it up from there for the remaining 18 years. So they need to make sure that the installation is not problem. So that's done. We have the warranty in hand on the project.
Okay, any other discussion?
I raised a question about, I'm concerned about the volume of dollar movement to the high school alone. Is there any way to see a sum total of everything that's been approved and have somebody independently evaluate it? I do not remember us ever buying, setting up a high school roof.
So we have all that information. I mean, so I don't have it in front of me right now, Bob. I mean, but we have all that information, and there were multiple estimates that were obtained from multiple various vendors and providers prior to the initial project approval by the board. So that information exists. So, if you want to follow up with John, he can get you that information. Sure.
Is this the final payment?
This is the final payment for the high school.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Vogel?
Yes.
Dr. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. All right, last item, number 8. Recommend that a resolution be adopted for the 22-23 budget, not to exceed the Act 1 index of 4%. This is an annual step that is taken for the purpose of, if we wanted to go above this index, we would have to vote to do that and go through a process, and there's very limited reasons why you are allowed to do that if you wanted to. So, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve, not to exceed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
The only thing I'll mention, we'll take
Let's
this.
just make this perfectly clear. This does not mean we are raising taxes tonight.
This is
At
saying
this-
if we raise taxes, we won't go over this
Right,
amount.
but a lot of people get it confused and say, we can't believe you people just voted on a 4% tax rate. That isn't what this is
No,
all
we're not doing that
about.
anymore tonight.
How did Bob Baker just speak? I want to be able to...
You've spoken several times. He asked a question for his reporting. We're not doing this now. Any board members?
I'm doing it for my reporting also, my press pass. I'm
No.
doing my reporting.
No.
Holly, I'm doing
No.
my reporting also.
No.
You just let Bob Baker...
I let you speak several times. Everybody's
Let's
had their
just
turn.
move on, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, move on.
All right, any
Move
other
on.
discussion from the board?
I'll take this as an opportunity.
Any other discussion from the board? Run for the board, George. You're not on the board. Go ahead, John.
So we'll take this as our annual reminder that we lost about $500,000 in revenue from P&G. And so that we lost that tax appeal, and that's important because that's equivalent of 2 mills. And so it's about 2 mills. And then Walmart was significantly less than that. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $75,000. And so I'm completely aligned with staying within the index, but it makes reaching our budget objectives much more difficult over the next few years due to that tax revenue we lost.
Okay. There's no other discussion? We get a roll call?
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Vogel?
Yes.
Dr. Favola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidman?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. All right, anything else that the board wants to discuss?
That lady in the back, she had her
Yeah, we're gonna
hand
do
up
public
for about
comment.
30 minutes.
All right. Public comment on whatever we choose.
It's me again. I'm still Shira Knight, still live in Tunkhannock Township.
Thanks, Shira.
A few months ago, Mr. Uhas asked Heather and the board about critical race theory. He was told that critical race theory is not even on the radar. Mr. Uhas then did a FOIA request, and to his surprise, there were over 1,500 emails returned to him, all regarding critical race theory. What is critical race theory? Critical race theory is an intellectual movement and a framework of legal analysis according to which, 1, race is a centrally invented category used to oppress people of color, and 2, the law and legal institutions in the United States are inherently racist insofar as they function to create and maintain social, political, and economic inequalities between white and non-white people. We recently learned from our 9th grade IEP student that he was listening to All American Boys. Sounds good, right? In English class. He told us, quote, "It has lots of swear words, it's very racist, talks about white privilege, and shows that cops beat up black kids for no reason." These statements obviously alarmed us, and we asked our student if he had a copy of the book so that we could take a look at it. He said, "No, we don't take the books home. We have books home we have books in class, and we follow along to an audiobook. We never have to read the book at home." Shocked, we then began to research the book. We found that this is the number 3 banned book of the year. We got our own copy of the book and found that the profanity is excessive, offensive, and not appropriate for a high school student. Most importantly, we found that the content was even more alarming. This book is simply indoctrinating children to distrust police, make white children believe that they are guilty of white privilege just because of their skin color, and perpetuates the myth that people of color are disadvantaged simply because of their skin color. This garbage does not belong in 9th grade classrooms. Mrs. Kendrovy and Mrs. Simeon went as far as to ask the kids during class if this book should be read. Many kids said no, including our student. The teachers then went on to discuss racism and stated that many people think 9th graders are too young to be learning about the subject of racism. They asked the students if they were too young. Many students replied yes. Our student stated that it's a hot topic and he felt he was too young. The teachers gave examples of white parents not telling their teenagers to put their hands on the steering wheel if they got pulled over by a cop, whereas black teenagers are taught this by their parents because of their race. Mrs. Kendrovy also told the students that since, quote, "our school is 99% white, we need to learn about these topics because they don't get exposure to the different cultures." Mrs. Kendrovy also told the students that she purchased these books with her own money. This is critical race theory in our school. Critical race theory, along with profanity, does not belong in our classrooms. In a co-taught English class, we need to be teaching phonics and reading, not racism. We teach our children that everyone is created equal regardless of their skin. We teach our children to respect and obey authority. We teach our children that swearing is not acceptable and appropriate. We teach these things at home to only have them subjected to this garbage in the classroom. Tunkhannock Area School District, Mrs. Kondrovi, Mrs. Simeon, you should be ashamed of yourselves. I initially wanted my stepson to stand up here with me and read passages from this book for the shock factor of it all.
30 seconds, sorry, just let you know, 30 seconds.
However, I changed my mind because tonight I'm going to stay classy and neither myself nor my stepson will be reading the profanity. Instead, you can look at the list that I have to hand out. This is a list of profanities from just the first 2 chapters, along with a graph showing racism, stereotyping, and police brutality theme tracking. I believe that true activists look to unite and not divide. Martin Luther King Jr. said it best. I look for the day when people will be judged not by their color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So I'd like the school to explain to me, I've got a list here, I'd be more than happy to share it with you. Heather, can you explain why my kid is listening to this in school? Phil, F words, swear words, nonstop. Like, this is disgusting. Parents, you guys need to be asking your kids. I came across this by accident. I was having a conversation with my student in the car, and he just happened to
Okay, your time is up.
Stop it.
Your time is up.
Holly's the president, not you.
This didn't come to our house. This was always remaining in school, so if I hadn't asked the right questions and stumbled upon this, I wouldn't know that my kid had to, look at this, John. Look at these words.
All right.
That's only
Next
So
person.
we're going to, this is being.
I will share that with the
Holly
board.
asked him to be here. Holly defers to him. I defer to him.
Like that's.
Thank you. So Shira,
I have a paper that I can share with you. I have the
We
printout of
have
the
rules
chapters.
for a
And-
reason.
And I have.
We have rules
I would like
for
to
a
share that
reason.
with the board and also let the parents
We
at home
have-
know.
Okay,
Let
so-
the parents at home know that you need to be asking your kids what you're reading because critical race theory is here. It's not imaginary. It's not 1,500 emails from a FOIA request. It's in our school.
okay, so admin has looked into this, and I believe that you could follow up with her directly if you wanted to on what you find with that investigation, unless there's more you wanted to say today. Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Shira. Go ahead.
I would also like to discuss this book.
Yes.
Third most banned book for 2020, not just in
Russ
schools,
Knight, Tunkhannock
banned.
Township, right? Yeah.
Where I came from, I can tell you where I came from. Mummy and daddy loved each other very much.
All right.
Third most banned book, 2020, so far in top 5 again. This school's own policy states under student section 218-AR, under a level 2 misconduct, which has punishments ranging from detention to a 3-day in or out of school suspension. These punishments are for profanity and also possession of material deemed profane, violent, obscene, sexually suggestive, and or promoting hate and or intolerance. This school is literally handing out level 2 misconduct material to its students. Now, under the teacher section 317, conduct for disciplinary procedures, it states that there should be no use of profanity or abusive language. But I guess we're getting around that because we're playing an audio book. This is not a very clear message to your students when you allow constant swearing and profanity in class and then are prepared to punish them in the halls. Again, I have copies of that list that Shira's talked about. If anyone wants to see me after the meeting, I'm more than happy to give it to you. As Shira just said, to all parents listening, you need to be talking to your students. Like, we came across this by accident and it literally made me sick to my stomach. I feel this was done in a sneakily manner. The fact that this was never sent home, there were no homework assignments on this book, and we thought that odd to be in the beginning, but I guess we just go along with whatever until we ask the right questions. So I guess my questions are, firstly, who approves 9th grade curriculum? Oh, wait.
The board.
The board. Okay,
Yeah,
so
up
you- so
until
you-
now, I was the head of that curriculum committee.
So
but
you know this book and you approved it?
That book was not approved.
Okay. So if this book was not approved, then it would come in as a supplemental curriculum. So who approves supplemental curriculum?
I mean, I've never, I don't recall having like supplemental curriculum discussions.
So is it a correct assumption that you are not aware that this book is being taught in the school?
I was not aware that this book was being taught in school.
It's been taught for 2 years. This is not my student and there is actually another parent here tonight whose student. No, they said it wasn't approved. Who would approve the supplemental?
I don't believe that this has been approved.
It has not. Last year, I believe
Is supplemental curriculum normally approved?
Yeah, she's trying to answer.
Yeah.
I can't hear.
that last year, that was on a book list that students could choose from, a list of books. So it was not a required reading. So this year, it was not approved to be a required reading.
It was required last year. I saw that.
Yes, it was. Last year it was required. My grandson read it.
It was on a list of books, though, correct, that you could choose from?
So let me get this straight. Last year it was required, this year it was not approved. But it's still in my son's classroom. Fantastic.
Thanks, Ross.
Okay, so I feel like I only want to talk to the new school board members because the old ones have a very big confirmational bias to me. So to the new school board members and to the new superintendent, you have secret, clandestine ways that rogue teachers are implementing, and she's not the only one. These are only some of the emails that we spent thousands of hours going through. Your teachers, you're the watchdogs. You're not supposed to rubber stamp 1 through 7 approved, 1 through 17 approved, aye. You're supposed to stand up for us. You are our representatives. You're supposed to be the watchdogs between us, the Department of Education, and every crazy entity that tries to put something on us, okay? Just because it comes from the Department of Education doesn't mean you approve it. Just because it comes from the Association of School Boards, you approve it. You must defend us and protect us. There's a trust value. And that's why we let this go for so many years. We trusted it was getting done. You know, if I was a school board member, I probably would have screwed up too. Now is not a time to be screwing up. I promise you, as a Gazette, as we do our investigation, we're going to start airing this in our Gazette as well. You have more teachers and more books out there. I beg you, the new school board members, hold your ground. Don't close ranks with them. They have a confirmational bias. They're stuck. They feel assaulted because a lot of stuff is dumped on them because of the pandemic. They haven't been paying attention to a lot of stuff. You're going to be shocked. I will ask for a show of hands how many school board members put a FOIA request against their own administration.
I submitted
Thank you.
them
I appreciate it.
before.
Thank you very much. Because what happens is, hey, school board administration, how's the school going? Very good. Now look at, please, you have an advisory group that I know, they told me, they've been reaching out to you guys, trying to contact you guys in advance. Please reach out to the advisory group who has a huge brain trust. Tons of money and time is invested in research. We're trying to help you. I tried to reach out to leadership. I'm not getting a good response. So if you have a secret, clandestine way of doing business instead of being open, he is not the president, she is. She should be running it. If I have a question, literally new school board members, and I say objection, he doesn't say email to me later. You say point of order, we'd like to hear his objection. And then the point of order would be read all of 903. Holly's 903 was unlawful. Through omission, she didn't read the whole thing. So all you had to do was say, point of order, please read 903. I'm a new school board member. I can't possibly know everything. Please. Because if somebody doesn't start working with us, you're going to close ranks with them. Him and his law firm has led you into so many violations to the point that you are admitting to them on YouTube and don't even know it. Because he can't know it all either, trust me. I know a very high level attorney that said, what's a sunshine law? That's fair, because he can't know it all. Learn the sunshine law. Please help us. You're about to be shocked. When you get an invitation, if the Citizen Advisory Group requests that you go visit with them, visit with them. If I request an interview with you so I can show you what I'm finding, there's at least 3 groups of almost 400 people that are trying to help you. You can't do it all. I guarantee you there's more hours spent by us than you right now because we're more concerned with this and you're stuck in all this absurdity.
30 seconds.
So you have to get out of the absurdity. There's a construction in your policy book. If you can get out of the absurdity they keep razzle-dazzling you with all this craziness from the Department of Education, they're not law-writing entities. We are a decentralized government for a reason. The Quakers did it so that we can control what happens to us and we can push that outer government away from us and don't let their madness in here. And then you have some monsters on staff and faculty that are bringing that evil to us. Please help us. Please protect us. We trust you as a board. You just didn't know what you were doing. The new school board members, you are new. You get a chance to stop the madness. Don't close ranks with the people that have confirmational bias by no other nature except they feel defensive because they've been getting attacked because they're stuck in an absurd world that none of us could ever want it. But now you have a brain trust of people trying to help you, spending thousands of dollars to try and help you. Let us help you. You can't do it all. Thank you.
Thanks, George. All right, any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Bella Canella. I'm from Overfield Township. I just want to ask the board if you guys have heard and are considering test to stay in school. Have you been informed or done your research on that? Heather included.
We had looked at it in the past. It was not something we decided we were interested in doing. One of the other criteria for that we just saw come through in an advisory email was that masks have to be required by the district in order to participate in the test to stay program through the state.
Okay, so is it off the table then for that, or?
I believe so at this time. I mean, it's something we could always revisit, but I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not planning on it.
What if it's mandated?
I am not aware of anything that would.
That's a big what ifs, but the test to stay, we did look into that.
No, but what if it's mandated? It's not right now. Because you have a choice. You always have a choice.
We have a choice with test to stay, but we'd have to come up with our own health and safety.
Right.
It mandates masks.
Right, no, she's saying if the mandate came from the state saying that we had to test kids
Well, that's
at
not
school.
the test to stay program. That's
Yeah.
not the test to stay.
Yeah, that's not what that program is. If that program were mandated, I imagine we'd have an emergency meeting and we'd have to have these discussions, but I don't foresee this board would want to get, like, there would be some serious, because we are not, Dr. Pabola has even said at other meetings, we are not a healthcare facility. We are not a health clinic. We should not be pushing tests on kids. Parents can go do that themselves.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
And Bella, just for the record, I haven't heard nothing about that being mandated.
Okay.
I just got information on it on Tuesday, and I sent it out to them just so they can see how it works, but I have not heard that. So if it's coming, I'm unaware of it.
Who sent the information?
I got it at an IU meeting, and I sent it to the board members.
It was the same information about the test to stay that we had talked about in the past.
But it just came up again?
No, they were sharing it because the mask mandate was going away.
EDE sent it out, and then the IU director passed it on to me, and I passed it on to the board. So if you want to participate in it, then you have to go through this registration process.
Correct.
Right. I sent it out to them so that they would have the most recent information.
But one of the key things, and it was, I'm speaking of my own opinion here, I'm not speaking on the opinion of the board or administration. I believe that it was sent out by the state at that time because the mask mandate had gone away. Okay. So it was one of those like, oh, you want to keep kids in school? Put masks on your kids and then you can participate in this program, which we're not interested in.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Jody King, I'm still from Northmoreland.
Thanks, Jody.
It came to my attention that on October 27th, before any investigation was done into an incident where a coach verbally abused and manipulated student athletes, the school board approved hiring him to coach again, which is kind of shocking because you, the school board, listed this for vote again on November 18th. I'd like to ask you, Holly, what you think what you expected to happen when you asked Todd, Ken, Colleen, as well as Mr. Burke, Mr. Farr, and the chairman of extracurricular to do an investigation with parents, players, and officials.
So I believe that there was an investigation. I don't know the depth of it. I also know that we can't, if there was any kind of disciplinary action taken against the coach or any kind of action like that, we can't confirm or deny that in public because it's a staffing issue.
Well,
So-
in my meeting with Mr. Probola and Mr. Bosher, I was told that it wasn't an investigation.
It wasn't a what?
It wasn't an investigation. That
know
this
there-
was an allegation and there was no investigation. So I thank you for your answer. I would like to know I would like to ask any board members who have a daughter, what would you want your daughter to do if she witnessed abuse? What would any of you do if you watched your wife or mother be screamed at by a coach? Would you do nothing? Would you tell your daughter to do nothing? I ask these questions of all of you except of Mr. Probola because, as I understand, you believe verbal abuse is a gray area, end quote. Mr. Probola told me there is no so-called investigation, that he just kind of spoke to some folks that he ran into here or there. So I want to know who on the school board is responsible for an actual investigation. Who will do the job that Mr. Probola is clearly not willing to do or able to do? The school board and this administration is aware of many problems in other coaches in this district. 17 parents came forward against another coach, a case that, if it was made public, would make national news. They are still employed by this district. This case, where at least 7 people confirmed that this incident happened, I'm sure there'd be more if parents, players, and officials were actually questioned, but nothing has been done. I am also aware of an incident after this incident with a coach that actually put their hands on a parent. You, the administration and school board, have a problem in this district. You are not doing anything to correct it. You are making contracts with people you know should not be in those positions. I sent all of you an email on October 12th, not the new members, and if any of you would like a copy of the email I sent, I would be glad to send it to you. Yet, there was a new contract made with this coach on the 27th. I don't know how anything could have been investigated in 15 days, and according to Mr. Probola, nothing was investigated. It wasn't an investigation. You don't think you need to do an investigation before you rehire a coach that does these sorts of things? The future of this school and its athletic programs are not looking bright. Mr. Probola told me that my daughter should be so excited to receive her Letterman jacket and to wear it with pride. Pride for what? An athletic program that allows women, both teens and adults, to be verbally abused? My daughter will always have pride in standing up for what is right and what is good in this world. She doesn't need a participation trophy in order to have pride. It's absolutely disgusting to think that my daughter should put on a coat for a coach that sat her on the bench because she encouraged a teammate to stand up for herself when she was verbally abused. She's been taught how to be a strong young woman. She's not weak. What's weak is a coach who abuses his athletes. The time will come when all of you will have answer for what you have done here. If you allow this to continue with your coaches, I can honestly say that I will be more than happy to stand there and say I told you so when it does come to something bigger than what's happened so far. It doesn't have to be a punch. I don't know if anybody knows anything about abuse. I tried to explain this in a meeting with Mr. Bosher and Mr. Probola. Abuse doesn't begin with a punch to the face. Abuse begins with verbal words said at people to manipulate them, to put them down, to put them in a place where they feel inferior. And when the punch comes, they believe they deserve it. My daughter believed she didn't deserve verbal abuse. She believed her teammates didn't deserve verbal abuse. And I praise that. I have pride in that. She'll never wear your jacket. I could care less about your jacket, and neither could she. She hasn't even picked it up. That's how much she doesn't want your jacket. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody.
So I'm going to give you a demonstration of what happened.
Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out! Now! I'm sick of you! You're ridiculous! And your comments that you make! Get out of here!
I just have a question. John Burke, what would you do if somebody did that to Angie? Dr. Probola, is that okay? What should my daughter have done when that happened to me in public? What should she have done? What would you do?
Jen, I don't know how to answer your question.
Okay, well, I want you guys to think about that, because that's what happened to me. What happened to me wasn't even anywhere near as bad as what happened to a 16-year-old girl only a few days before. I reported that. I stood up for her and went and said, hey, it's not okay. I talked to Kenny. Kenny said that he would address the issue. He did not. I proceeded to call him 4 different times with unreturned messages after that. Nothing happened. I went and I actually met afterwards, after I got screamed at after that incident. I then met with Dr. Pravola, I met with Mr. Bosher. Mr. Bosher told me that, yes, it was validated by other parents. And then Mrs. King was told by Mr. Pravola that only 2 people said anything. I just wonder, was the information passed on about the father who complained? Was the school board aware of that? Well, that happened. There was a complaint that was sent forward, and you guys didn't hear about it. When I met with Dr. Pravola, I actually did a very minor version of that, and he was like, whoa, and kind of backed up right away. Why would you have backed up? Did it make you nervous? Did it make you uncomfortable? Because let me tell you, it made me uncomfortable. And it made me more uncomfortable knowing that that had just happened to a 16-year-old girl not long before that. When I find out that my daughter comes home and she, on a one-on-one drill, gets beat by another girl, she beats another girl, and she's proud of herself for it. And the coach was like, oh, the other girl, won that. And my other daughter's like, no, Sarah won that. And he says it again, and then he's like, mocking my daughter, who had just been proud of herself for something that she did. Those things happen on a regular basis. Just because somebody has coached 60+ teams doesn't mean they're good at it. I can tell you every day I sing in the car, and you know what? I'm still horrible at it. It's not that you do something a whole lot and it makes you good at it. It doesn't mean that one time you do something terribly wrong and that there shouldn't be consequences for it. But now I'm curious, what do I tell my 2 beautiful daughters that are sitting right there that know that if they say anything, that they're gonna face repercussions? You know why? Because they did. They stood up, they said something, they asked about a girl, like how she was doing. And you know what? They actually suffer consequences for that. I think that's disgusting. What do I tell my girls if they come home and they're actually physically assaulted? Because I know that Dr. Pravola thinks that that's the defining difference, that if they're physically assaulted and they're afraid to go tell somebody, what do I say? People are gonna do the right things. People are gonna stand up for you. People are actually gonna care. And they look back to the incident of what happened this year, and they saw several different times where it didn't matter. And if something did happen to their coach, they don't know that. So the message that they have heard is that nobody's gonna do anything about it anyway. And you have an administration problem when it is known, when my kids say, oh, well, you talk to the athletic director, well, everyone knows he's not gonna do anything. Because everyone says that. I heard it from several different parents when I said that I reported it to Kenny. And you know what? He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. Nothing was done about it, so nothing that I'm aware of was done. Was there an investigation?
Her time is up, but I don't know if anybody, I'm not on that committee and I'm not as well versed with the situation.
Did you get some answers?
Yeah, was there an investigation? It's a pretty straightforward question.
Who's going to look into it, and at what date will we get an answer?
We did look into it, and I met with you.
Was there an investigation?
I think that that could be subjective. I don't know what it entailed.
What's the process for me to ensure that a formal investigation happens? Because I know it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just Mrs. King. At least 4 students stood up for themselves and said something too. At least a father stood up and said something too. I'm sorry that information didn't get passed on. It was sent to Mr. Bosher, and he said that it was taken care of. But it wasn't taken care of. That same coach has been voted in since then. Yeah, last school board meeting, it was tabled. Why was it tabled? If new information was out there and it was tabled, that should have been enough information for you to say, hey, we really need to look into this. It needs to be investigated. It wasn't. Or maybe it was, and we're being misled. I don't know.
No one's being misled. We followed what we did, and I met with you.
Yeah, you met with me.
And I met with Ms. King, and I read the emails, and that's what I...
Were there other parents that said anything? Because I was told by Mr. Bosher that he contacted other parents and that it was also that my concerns that I brought up before I met with you, Dr. Prabal, before I met with you, that he actually talked with other parents. There were some that confirmed what happened, and there were others that did not. And I would like to note that during the meeting with Dr. Prabal, or I'm sorry, with Mr. Bosher and with Kenny, that the coach never denied one of the things that happened. He actually said that he would do it all again because it was effective. And that was after me explaining how I had to pick up my daughter from school because she was physically ill and was up the night before, couldn't sleep, and was upset and stuff like that. What do I tell her? That you guys are going to look out for her? I mean, it's simple. Was there an investigation?
You all know this guy. It's not true for instance.
Right, and it wasn't just two parents that complained. I heard that other parents were talked to, and then I've heard that we were the only two that said anything. Kenny was at the game, there were refs at the game, there were the two teams at the game, lots of people saw what happened.
We've already spoken about it. I said we've already spoken about this, we followed our process, administration looked into it, and that's it.
Can I please get a record of the process?
Because you're not doing your job.
Can I get a record, like, can I get some sort of record of what the process is? So I can be aware of it?
The process.
Run her meeting.
You're asking about a legal process. I am the president. I have him here for a reason. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say that without knowing anything about this, we're not allowed to discuss personnel matters, and we cannot disclose certain information. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the case.
So to my daughters, I can't tell you if anyone will actually stick up for you, including the school board. Like, that's sad that I have to tell them
Okay, so
that.
let me just throw out a hypothetical example, because I honestly don't have any of the details specific to this person. But let's say that there was somebody who had just, they were crossing that line, which is, you know, my line might be here and yours is here and somebody else's is here. And somebody had a real, excuse me, like a come to Jesus sit down conversation with that person about what is acceptable and what is not, and what the consequences are in the line and all these kinds of things. We wouldn't be able to sit here and say, like, we had this real in-depth, like, this crap won't fly conversation and they're basically on probation, or they're this or they're that. So there's no one up here that can tell you that that happened. And I'm not saying that I know that or I don't know that, because I don't. But I do know that if that happened, if a letter was put on somebody's file, if a note was made on a performance review, anything like that, we wouldn't be able to tell you that to tell your daughters. So I don't know that that's even helpful, but I just want to say, like, it limits what we can publicly say about how a response happened or what the action was taken.
Well, doing the same thing though. So he was clearly rewarded, not punished. That's our point. And our daughters see this. Does anybody care that our children see this? That our children know what's right and wrong here? They're innocent enough to say there's no gray. There's absolutely no gray when it comes to an adult man screaming an inch away from a 16-year-old's face. Thank God my daughter has the black and white, because the gray of a Mr. Bribola is disgusting to me. My daughter's black and white, I can respect. I can't respect the gray of screaming in a 16-year-old's face and then awarding the man a contract less than 2 weeks later.
Okay, so I don't have any more answers for you today.
Okay.
But we can certainly, like, obviously this is a situation that's going to remain on the burner. Nobody's fretting about the situation and moving on, and let's see what happens from here.
Well, I did notice that it wasn't on the agenda tonight, but it was tabled in the last school board meeting.
Well, the issue which Jody brought up was the fact that it was never supposed to be on that agenda that it got tabled on, because it had been approved the meeting before.
Yeah.
So that is the case, and I believe that this has been a lesson for all of our coaching and all of our coaching staff, that you know, we have a standard and that we want to maintain it, and let's see what happens from here, because we can't change what's happened in
Well,
the
I would like a
past.
copy of the standards, so I know when it is clearly over the line, and I can confront it immediately and record it or do whatever I need to, because I want to protect my children. What they went through this year,
Can somebody send her a copy of the coaching
it's not
handbook?
okay.
Okay. Okay. We'll
Okay.
get a copy of the
And
coaching handbook out.
that actually leads me to a second point. So I wasn't at that school board meeting because I had looked online and it said that the meetings were going to be via Zoom. And I couldn't make it here in time.
We've gotten that corrected. It's been a crazy
Yeah.
time, and there's no expectation that we're going back to Zoom.
I actually called before the last school board meeting to confirm where it was going to be and pointed out that, you know, there was a conflict there, and I was told then that it would be taken care of, and I know it was just taken care of this morning.
Yeah.
And then I actually have another thing that I would like to try to protect my kids from. So is there something that can be done about the vaping in the bathrooms in the high school? Because I know that I've heard from multiple kids that they're very uncomfortable, like even going into their own bathrooms in their school to use the bathrooms, because they have to kick kids out of the stalls that are vaping in there. And when I said, well, don't you tell the teachers? What I hear is that all the teachers are aware. They don't even go in the bathrooms because then they have to do something about it.
If there's specific information, if you could send that along to Mr. Bosher, and we can, you know, I mean, it's an issue that's existed for a while, and when I was in school, it was actual smoking in the bathroom. So, I mean, this is not what I would say new. I'm not saying it's acceptable, but it's the latest. So, yeah, I believe that there's a constant effort to try and stay on top of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
That took longer than I expected.